body parts were found all over Long Island. They had 4 suspects. They let them go.
Right.
And now they're out there still. So what is the deal here?
Right.
It sounds insane to me.
Sounds insane to me too. New York Governor Kathy Hochul was grilled about crime during her appearance on The View, and I loved seeing it, especially when she was asked to defend her intensely stupid idea of deploying hundreds of National Guard troops into the subway system to keep people safe. Now, Hochul announced that she would be deploying 750 members of the National Guard and 250 state troopers and police officers in order to basically do random bag checks of people riding the subway. It's unsustainable, it's expensive, and it did nothing to keep New Yorkers safe. In fact, there was a shooting in the subway system just last week after she had already deployed the National Guard troops.
Hello everybody, today we're back on the Young Turks, and Anna Kasparian is commenting on an interview with New York Governor, what was her name, Hochul, who went on The View, my favorite show, one of my favorite shows. It's just so good for a laugh. And the Yentas on The View, specifically Joy Behar, were apparently grilling her. So maybe they have something good to say for once about her decision some time ago to deploy the National Guard in the New York City subway. And also about, I think they're going to talk to her also about bail reform in New York City, which of course is one of these big leftist talking points. You know, God forbid, that criminals or suspected criminals who are arrested should have to like stay in jail. Why can't we just release them without bail so they can go right back to committing crimes? Wow, that seems like a good idea, doesn't it? Will probably help our statistics too in some way. Let's see what they have to say.
Now, with that in mind, Behar weighs in with an interesting point that we'll get back to in just a second, mostly about certain tweaks that need to be made on the criminal justice reform that's been passed in New York, but more importantly, what those flaws have led to. So with that in mind, let's watch some more of their conversation.
You deployed hundreds of state police and National Guard troops into the subway system. But since the pandemic, you have done a wonderful job. Overall crime is down in the city.
Yes, it is.
So my question to you is, why now? Why deploy into the subway? And how do you respond to some of your fellow Democrats calling the move theatrics that play into Republican narratives that blue cities are poorly run war zones?
I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. My job is to keep people safe. I have to keep, any way I can, I'm going to keep New Yorkers safe. And I'll tell you who does show appreciation for
Any way she can, she's going to keep New Yorkers safe. Let's see how she's going to apply that.
the people out there on the streets. I've been walking the streets. I walk into business. People are just saying, thank you for taking such strong action. Now, the subways have been safer, but we had a spike recently.
Yes.
A 45% increase in subway crimes. Now, these are high-profile crimes.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
Because the CEO of the MTA says that 1% of subway suspects are responsible for more than 20% of the crime because of New York's bail reform laws, which allows them to go back out there and commit more crimes.
Joy Behar is 1,000% right. And rather than tweaking the bail reform in order to do something about a tiny group of people that's causing all this chaos on the subway system, Kathy Hochul has decided to instead basically use up all these resources to do something that's ineffective and makes people uncomfortable, which was the deployment of National Guard troops. And just to give you some more information on what Behar was referencing there, MTA CEO Jono Lieber said 38 people were arrested for crimes against transit employees last year, and those suspects had over 600 prior arrests. Citing NYPD data, Lieber said 1% of subway suspects were responsible for well over 20% of the crime.
Well, there we go. Listen to Anna Kasparian and Joy Behar, of all people, parroting right-wing talking points, you know, being against bail reform. Yeah. Just you catch these guys in the act in the subway, arrest them, the cops do their job, and then, as cops have always complained about, rightly so, they're just turned right back out onto the street where they can apparently commit crimes again with impunity, because it is with impunity if they're just arrested and released immediately. Incredible. 1% of subway suspects responsible for well over 20% of the crime. Absolutely outrageous, breathtakingly stupid, and breathtakingly dangerous. I would not be happy if I were a New Yorker.
There's also been some studies that have more data about this. For instance, the elimination of money bail increased recidivism for people charged with nonviolent felonies, with recent criminal history, and with a recent violent felony arrest. And while it decreased recidivism for people charged with misdemeanors and people with no recent criminal history. So there was a noted difference in how bail reform worked when it comes to recidivism. And by the way, this is a study that was done by John Jay College, their Data Collaborative for Justice. And keep in mind, this is not some right-wing organization. These are the very people who have been pushing for criminal justice reform. And so they're studying what the impact of bail reform in New York has been. And they found that it has increased recidivism for certain people. The reduced use of bail for legally eligible cases tended to increase recidivism among people charged with violent felonies and people with a recent arrest. The starkest and most consistent recidivism increases across both research designs were among people with a recent prior violent felony arrest and among people currently charged with violent felonies who had a recent criminal history. And so the same study, by the way, found that 67% of defendants who had a recent prior felony arrest in the past year and then were released with no cash bail were rearrested within 2 years of their arraignment. Almost half, 49%, were rearrested for a felony. And I should note again that this is data that's been collected by a group of people who absolutely love the bail reform and love the criminal justice reform. It's just that they're doing their due diligence in keeping track of how it's actually played out for New Yorkers.
A lot of mainstream media don't give you honest news. Yeah,
well, very interesting points there raised by Anna Kasparian. And of course, yes, it is a good thing that the social justice types were actually doing some data analysis, and they saw that, recent violent offenders, recent felonious offenders, when released on no cash bail, tended to re-offend. Okay, sort of makes sense. And that people who hadn't had any prior arrests or prior violent offense tended not to. Okay. That makes sense, I suppose. I guess you have to take you have to accept a little wins when they come. But of course, what is New York City going to do about this? And what is New York State going to do about it? And yeah, Kathy Hochul, governor of New York State, decides to deploy the National Guard. Because their presence is going to make a difference. And how long were they even deployed for? I'm sure it was just a temporary measure. I'm sure some of you in the comments can tell me. Maybe some of you actually live in New York City, can let me know. But yeah, one of my daughters, I have 3 grown-up daughters, but I have 1 young daughter who's 13. And she asked me about visiting New York someday, and I said, I don't think so. But maybe I'm just being overly protective. I've been myself a few times, and yeah, it has its charms to a certain extent, but I have no desire to go back. And yeah, let's see if they go a little bit further on The View. Let's get past this.
We do, you know why? So there's 3, I think, easy fixes here, but it's so frustrating how slow and irrational our politics and our government is. Okay, so number 1, in New York, and this needs to be fixed immediately, and this is not about any reform that happened recently. The judges cannot take the violence of the crime into account. They can only take into account whether the person is going to flee or not. Well, that makes no sense. So, okay, well, I don't think that serial killer is going to flee. He really likes, Rochester. Okay, so he's gonna stay put, so I'm gonna let him go back home. What? So in New York law, to be fair, serial killer is an exception actually, because there's only a couple of super extreme crimes where they could take that into account. But other than that, you commit a very violent crime and the judge is not allowed to consider it when he's looking at whether to give you bail or not.
Can I give you an example?
Yeah.
Actually, it's an extreme example that Joy Behar confronted Governor Hochul about, and it's in this next clip. Let's watch that real quick, and I'll fill in the blanks.
The
This should be
CEO of the
interesting.
MTA says that 1% of subway suspects are responsible for more than 20% of the crime because of New York's bail reform laws, which allows them to go back out there and commit more crimes. But there was just a crime on Long Island where body parts were found all over Long Island. They had 4 suspects. They let them go.
Right.
And now they're out there still. So what is the deal here?
Right.
It sounds insane to me.
Though the crime that was brought was not what was bail eligible. Yes, murder is. Yes, conspiracy to commit murder is. Yes, assault is bail eligible. All those are. And I know the DA is working really hard with the Suffolk County Police Department to build the case they need to bring the charges that are necessary. The charges he brought, he did not have enough evidence at time to
So you
hold
can't
it.
hold them?
Not on the charges he brought.
No, you have to
But those
have
are low-level charges. They really weren't. And we can work to make those bail eligible in the next session.
Dismembering a corpse and hiding a corpse after dismembering it, not bail eligible, not a serious crime. I'm not even kidding, guys. Like when Joy Behar outlined that case, I was like, she's crazy. This isn't a thing. This isn't real. This isn't real. So I looked it up. It's real, guys. It's real. Listen, if being on the left means supporting this, then I'm not on the left, and I'm okay with that.
Well, I'm not familiar with this particular crime. Yeah, so I guess the DA apparently has charged him with illegally dismembering a body or disposing of a body, not with murder. But clearly, if you're doing something like that, there's probably something else going on, and therefore the people should be held till they get to the bottom of the whole thing. Like, where did this body come from? Did they kill the person first before dismembering them? Oh, it's just clown world out there. Absolute clown world. I don't even want to know the details to this, but maybe some of you, if anyone's familiar, you can let me know in the comments. And there's Anna Kasparian again, you know, on her right wing, veering rightward. If this is what the left supports, then she's not a person of the left. Yes, we know, Anna. You've told us. We'll see. We'll see. We're still watching, but this just sounds absolutely ridiculous. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. In the meantime, if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. It really helps me grow the channel and continue making content for you.